were working at Teen Vogue, correct? And then what were some lessons that are strategies or cultural things that you took from that and kind of brought it into the book world? Because I think that's such a unique way as like how kind of pop culture and things kind of can come into the book world and make it unique in that way as well.
Yeah, totally. So like Condé Nast in general, the joke that like my Condé friends and I always make is the whole "you wouldn't last an hour in the asylum where they raised me." Working at Condé was very difficult. It's a tough environment. You're constantly reminded that if you're not the best or if you're not up to the task, someone else is, and someone else is waiting to do your job.
Yep.
And so I think there was just a lot of pressure in that environment. And so I hope that that is a rhetoric that I did not bring with me into publishing. But what I will say is that Teen Vogue as a brand is like, will always be such a huge love of my life. I owe so much to Teen Vogue. I will always be its biggest fan. I think for me, like, it shaped my understanding of and love for like fashion and how fashion and beauty can be storytelling outlets in the same way that writing and dance have always been for me. I also think that like Teen Vogue created my passion for working with young people and helping them like realize and wield their impact on the communities and spaces that they care about. I think my insistence that every single thing you ever do, say, consume, wear, read is always political came from Teen Vogue. We have this, I think that when it comes to strategy, there was a saying that we would always say at Teen Vogue, which was get you a brand that can do both. And basically what that means is that we care about shoes and lip gloss and purses, but we also care about fascism and democracy and human rights and the human rights crises that are happening all over the world right now. And like, those things don't need to be mutually exclusive. And I think that like, that's really what I took with me into the book world is like there's this idea that people care as much about the brands that they're consuming from as they do the products that they're purchasing. I say that all the time. So it's really important to show people who you are, what you care about, where your values lie as a brand, if you expect them to trust your product recommendations. And I also think that leads to community, because when you show people who you are, you can use your platform to really bring them together around shared interests and values, which is kind of like the bread and butter of what my whole career has been, is bringing people together around shared interests.
I guess to that point, because you're talking about it a little bit, how do you kind of think about like that? I remember, especially earlier in this year, just like how people talk about, oh, books are political and stuff. And you kind of are bringing that in. You said like brands are kind of on that a little bit and thinking about that. So I'm kind of curious of how you kind of think about that, especially when you think about content strategy and how to kind of be a part of these conversations, or maybe not. I'm kind of interested in hearing how you think about that.
I think when you're a brand, like, you have to kind of look at it from a two-pronged approach, which is like the people who are working on the brand itself, like, we are all very like-minded, where, there's a reason we work in the book space. I think that, not too many people would work in publishing if they didn't genuinely care about the impact that books have on readers, especially young readers. And that all ties into politics, and you really can't separate them. And you shouldn't want to. But that being said, I also think that when you are working for a corporate company, you have to make sure that you're also being very brand safe, and that you're not posting something on behalf of a brand and, putting so much of yourself into it that it no longer represents the company at large. So there's kind of always that balance that you're trying to strike. And so for me, what it comes down to is just what is an opinion and what is something that can be genuinely impactful and help readers. And, if it's the latter, then we're going to run with it.
If you enjoyed that clip, make sure you head over to www.bookupapp.com to download our app so you can connect with your favorite bookish content creators, start conversations, and start your own book club.